Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Adam. This is Steve. We're the founders of Hipmunk. Hipmunk is the best way to search for flights and now hotels online. Let me show you some of our flight search results. What you see here is a search from San Francisco to Austin. And what you'll notice here is that we're showing you all of the most relevant results on a single page. And they're laid out in such a way that you can easily compare how long the flights are, what time of day they depart and arrive, and even how long the layovers are, just at a single glance. Now, unlike other websites, we don't just sort by price. Instead, we sort by what we call agony, which is a metric that incorporates price, but also the duration and number of stops. And so you can easily tell here, for example, that even though the non-stop flights are a little bit more expensive, they're on the top of the list because we think most people would prefer to take them. You can also sort these results or filter these results if there are certain times of day that you can't fly. Next, let me show you hotels. Here you can see a list of results for Austin. And what you'll notice here is that we're not just displaying hotels, we're also displaying Airbnb vacation rentals. So you can easily compare them side by side. The results are here sorted by what we call ecstasy. Agony for flights, ecstasy for hotels. The idea is that we're incorporating things like the amenities and the user reviews. And you can easily overlay hotspots based on food, nightlife, or even vice, which is like strip clubs, casinos, houses of ill repute. Anyway, so we've launched Hipmunk. This has been going fantastically. Users make fan art. Steve was one of the founders of Reddit. I wrote a technical book when I was 16. We have hundreds of thousands of users who use Hipmunk every month. We sell millions of dollars in flight and hotel bookings every month. It's the best way to search for flights and hotels online. Thanks.
Bravo, you get the duh, why hasn't anyone done this before award. Fantastic.
Thank you.
Can you tell me a little bit about the history, how it happened?
Yeah, so in college I was kind of a flight nerd. I'd like memorized those 3-letter city codes and had airline route maps up on my wall. And so my friends would always ask me for help in finding flights for them. But using the other sites like Kayak and Expedia, I would always find myself spending a whole afternoon to be sure that I actually understood what the trade-offs were between the options. So it started largely just to scratch my own itch.
Is it free?
Absolutely.
So how do you earn revenue, to state the obvious?
Yeah, we get
payback
commissions, for referrals, yeah.
Commission.
And what is the, talk me a little bit through the economics of the commission situation, not just for Hipmunk, but more generally for the category, because I know there's a bunch of companies that have been very successful in this, but I always scratch my head a little bit about how much money changes hands, but lots apparently, right?
Lots and lots. I mean, Kayak, which has something like 6% of the market,
Yep.
is probably going to IPO sometime in the next couple of weeks at a valuation of like $800 million. So it's a very, very large market. And the commissions basically work, you generate leads to either airlines or hotels or travel agencies. You can sort of pit them off against each other to compete for that business. And then they pay sort of a revenue share or a flat fee or something like that.
Where does the underlying data come from these days?
So on flights, we get it from a company called ITA Software, which is what powers Kayak and Bing and Orbitz and several others, as well as direct links with some of the airlines. And on the hotel side, we get a number of different feeds from hotels and hotel aggregators.
It just seems to me that, one of your great benefits is you allow me to visualize all my alternatives very quickly versus a Kayak which just lists them in whatever criteria I put. Beyond the visualization and the things you've talked about, is there something more you can do with Hipmunk that you think customers will pay for? Is there any, as opposed to the commission structures you have?
Sure. I think there are definitely opportunities for power user tools. I mean, things that people ask for all the time are seat maps on the site, so they can only search for flights that have window seats available or aisle seats. There are costs involved in doing that, but if we had people subscribing, we could easily charge for that. I think business travelers in particular would pay for that. And similarly, we could incorporate other reviews or, have private sale properties, that hotels are listing, for members only, There are a bunch of different alternatives, but we think at first we just want to reach the widest audience possible, so that's why we're keeping it all free.
Let me extend Laura's question a little bit. What other visualizations have you guys looked at outside of flights and hotels? I mean, what's next after that?
Oh, that's a good question. So, I mean, we're thinking in lots of different directions. We have an iPhone app, probably do an iPad app, and Android, and there'll be, a different visualization for each of those just due to the screen constraints. But then there are all the other, verticals in travel: car rentals, package deals, local event deals, and each of those, I think, has sort of had the same slowness and innovation prior to what we did in flights and hotels. So I think there's a lot of opportunity there as well.
Why won't other competitors pick up this usable visual very quickly and take away your competitive advantage?
Well, so there are a number of reasons. The first is that other sites actually have a financial incentive not to make it easy for people to find what they're looking for. Let me explain. When you go to Kayak or one of those other sites and you see 10 results on the first page, they actually want you to click through to page 2 and 3 and 40 and 50 because they get to show you a whole new set of advertisements on those pages that they get to monetize even more. So it's just not in their DNA to focus entirely on what's helpful to users and just throw away all that ad revenue incentive that they're getting. It's the same reason that they have those pop-ups and pop-unders and all those things. So one of them is sort of just a financial reason. Another is, I think we're just moving way faster than any of these sites have. I mean, Kayak, it took like a year and a half to do flights and then hotels. We did it in 6 months. And we're already developing an iPhone app. That took them an even longer period of time. I think just coming at this from being outside the industry and with some absolutely incredible engineers allows us to just innovate way faster than anyone else.
I've been struck by the fact that Kayak is doing traditional brand advertising, outdoor stuff, some television and spot market stuff. There's a part of me that wonders, how much of this is kind of a zero-sum game with them if they do IPO and take some of those funds and kind of use it to maybe uneconomically in the short term acquire customers. Like, just do you worry that it might be hard to get noticed in a world where Kayak is buying national television ads?
No, not at all. I mean, I think when Kayak steals market share, they're stealing market share from the even older established players, Expedia and Travelocity. Because right now Kayak has 6% or something of the market. And I think what Kayak's planting in people's heads is this idea that the best way to shop for flights online is to use a site that searches multiple other sites, which is what we do and what they do. So as they start spending marketing dollars, especially outside the United States, to plant that idea in people's heads, I think we can piggyback on that because there'll be lots of articles written about this new player, Kayak, that's just IPO'd. We're already seeing ourselves being mentioned in those same articles.
What is the current state of the situation with the airlines that don't want to be the participants in these aggregation sites? So, because that strikes me as at least as a Kayak user, that strikes me as the most frustrating thing. It's like, well, I'm supposed to get this unified view, but in reality, there are 2 or 3 airlines I care about that I can't see there.
Yeah, my understanding is that there's only one airline that Kayak doesn't have. We don't have them either. It's Southwest, and they just have this habit of suing people who try to incorporate the data. But otherwise, the airlines generally seem very positive on the idea because we give them the opportunity to get the customer directly to their website.
Right.
The reason that the airlines are pulling out of sites like Expedia and Orbitz is because they keep the customer, they keep the transaction, and the airlines want to own it themselves.
I just have to say before I forget, last night when your people were handing out scarves, it seemed like a really bad idea, but with the cold snap today, bravo for being able to predict the weather. Maybe that should be your next...
Yeah, I actually went and tested your site before I came here, and I will tell you one great thing about the visualization, and it was immediate, was I'd also called an airline on a particularly difficult flight. I'd gone to Kayak, I'd gone to your site, and then I'd called the carrier I wanted to go on. And it took a phone call to the carrier to come up with the alternatives you came up with. So that was really, and it took me no time at all to go to your site. It was really great. Can I ask, the airlines have been notorious in cutting their expense streams, especially when they're paying commission to third parties. They've done it in many different ways over time. What happens when they come in and just say, you know what, we're not going to pay you that amount. We'll pay you half that amount or a quarter of that amount?
Sure. Well, in the travel industry in general, the money that's made from flights is a very small percentage of the money that's made from hotels. And the reason is because there are so many more hotel chains. It's so much more fragmented. None of them has the market power to sort of threaten to pull out unless you accept lower commissions. And so just, I mean, we have a flight and a hotel product. Kayak has the same thing. We expect that over time, we'll be making way more money from hotels than we do for flights. And that'll make that issue much less important.
You thought about including people's frequent flyer awards in display?
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, if
to
you've
that
got
level.
status with an airline or something, I mean, you can specify your preferred airlines already, but we've definitely thought about ways to incorporate that better.
Can you say a little bit about the underlying technology? I suspect it would be a misjudgment to guess that you could take any platform and put the same visualization on top of it and just be done. Can you say a little bit about the kind of the what you're doing behind the scenes that makes it possible to do these kinds of visualizations where other people might struggle?
Sure. I mean, on the front end, we're doing a lot of fancy JavaScript stuff. There's no Flash. There's nothing like that, so it works on all platforms. And actually, the back end is pretty much open to any kind of data. I mean, we're currently showing flights, but we're also showing trains on the northeast corridor of the United States. So we can just dump that data in the same way. And so, you know, it's fairly extensible technology.
Any other questions? All right, thank you.
Cool, thanks.
Got it.